Okay, let's unpack this deep dive. We've got a source claiming something pretty startling.
Right.
It suggests, that serious health problems, maybe even deadly ones, can start silently, specifically in your legs after 65.
And that by the time you notice, it
That,
might be quite late.
mm,
The source even links it, potentially, to less than 5 years left.
exactly. It's this idea that your legs might be sending out these vital signals, signals that maybe get missed.
Yeah, and what's really striking about this source material we're digging into is that central idea.
Mm-hmm.
These aren't just aches and pains of getting older.
Mm-hmm.
They're potentially early warnings. Warnings of serious stuff that, might not show up in a regular doctor's visit, according to this source.
Absolutely. So the source for today's deep dive, it's a YouTube video titled Death Starts in Your Legs After 65, 3 Signs Nobody Tells You and How to Avoid It.
Catchy title.
It is from a channel called Senior Life Secrets. So our plan is to go through this video, pull out the key claims it makes, the stats it uses.
The stories it tells.
Right, the anecdotes. And importantly, the actions it says could actually help.
And the video makes a big promise, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It says it'll reveal 3 hidden warning signs
Mm-hmm.
and specific protocols that, according to its claims, could help turn things around, maybe even add years to your life.
Right. So that's our goal, to really understand what this source says are the critical warnings and the solutions it's putting forward. We're just extracting those nuggets for you. Ready to jump into the first sign.
Let's do it. So the source starts with something that, well, a lot of people might just brush off. Persistent swelling in the legs.
You mean like, after a long day, your ankles look a bit puffy, shoes feel tight, that kind of thing.
Exactly, that initial swelling. But the key point the source makes is when that swelling doesn't go away.
Ah.
Like you wake up the next morning and your ankles or calves are still puffy.
Yeah.
That persistence.
Okay, so it's the sticking around that's the red flag, according to this source. And what connection does the video make? What does it link that to?
It links it directly to something called venous insufficiency. The claim is that it suggests the heart might be struggling, having trouble pumping blood efficiently back up from the legs.
So the veins aren't returning the blood properly.
That's the idea presented, yeah. Like a plumbing issue almost.
Wow. And the stats the video throws out there are, well, they're pretty alarming.
They are.
It cites vascular specialists, supposedly from Johns Hopkins Medicine, saying this persistent swelling is linked to an 84% increased risk of fatal cardiac events.
Yeah, 84%.
Within just 5 years. That's a huge number.
It's a very striking statistic from the source.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop there. It also mentions a 10-year study published in the American Heart Journal,
Okay.
which the source claims found seniors with this chronic leg swelling had a 57% higher mortality rate from all causes over 10 years compared to folks without the symptom.
57% higher risk of dying from anything.
According to that study cited in the source. Yes, it really underlines why the video argues this symptom is so critical.
And they use stories, right, to sort of drive the point home.
They do. Cautionary tales.
Mhm.
There's Howard, who apparently had swelling, cramps, dismissed it, just getting older, he thought.
Uh-huh.
But the source says it ended tragically with a pulmonary embolism, a blood clot in the lung.
Oh, wow.
And then there's Nancy. Her ankles stayed puffy for months, brushed it off until she was rushed to the ER, heart failure, functioning at only 35% capacity, according to the source. It frames these as, really stark examples of what ignoring this sign could lead to.
Okay, so if someone notices this persistent swelling, what does the source say to do? It mentions a protocol.
Yes, the 30-33 protocols, they call it. First step, elevate your legs for 30 minutes every day.
And not just up on a stool, right? They're specific.
Very specific. The source says you need to get them above your heart. So like lying down maybe in bed with 3 pillows under your calves and feet.
Okay.
And the claim is pretty bold.
Yeah.
The source says this can improve vein function by up to 30% in just 1 week.
30% in a week just from elevating? Okay. That's one part of the 30-33. What else?
Second part, eliminate 3 specific hidden sodium sources.
Yeah.
Things you might not think about.
Like what?
Canned soups, processed lunch meats, and even certain antacids, apparently.
Antacids. Didn't know about that one.
Me neither. And the source makes another big claim here, citing vascular surgeons at Cleveland Clinic,
Which is?
that cutting out just these 3 things could reduce that dangerous leg swelling by up to 40% within 72 hours.
40% in 3 days.
Yeah.
Just from cutting those 3. That's quite a claim from the source about sodium's impact.
It really is. And the third part of the protocol is a daily check. They call it the 30-second sock test.
How does that work?
The source says Press your thumb firmly into the front of your ankle bone. Hold for 3 seconds, then look.
Okay.
If that little dent, that indentation, stays there for more than 5 seconds after you lift your thumb,
Then what?
the source urges you. Call your doctor immediately.
And it even suggests asking for something specific, doesn't it?
Yes, a BNP blood test.
Yeah.
BNP. The source claims this test measures a hormone that can actually reveal heart failure potentially years earlier than other tests.
So it's giving you a specific thing to ask your doctor about.
Exactly, a concrete action based on that sock test result, according to the video.
Okay, fascinating. So that covers persistent swelling and the source's 3033 protocol. What's warning sign number 2?
This next one is about changes you can actually see or feel on your legs, discoloration and temperature differences.
So like patches of skin looking different.
Right. The source describes patches turning pale or maybe getting a bluish look or even reddish in certain areas.
And feeling colder too. I think the source mentioned that.
Precisely. Parts of the leg might feel noticeably cooler to the touch compared to other areas nearby or the other leg.
And what does the source link these changes to?
It points to peripheral arterial disease, PA.
PAD. Okay, and what does the source say PAD is basically?
It's essentially a circulation problem in the arteries. The source states these color and temperature changes are signals that blood isn't getting through properly to those tissues, often because of blockages.
Blockages in the arteries supplying the legs.
That's the explanation given.
And again, the stats the video pulls out for this one, pretty scary.
They really are. It cites research, supposedly from the Mayo Clinic, claiming these symptoms come with a 400% increased risk of stroke and heart attack
400%.
within 5 years, according to the source's citation.
Wow. Okay.
And there's more. It mentions a study from the Journal of Vascular Surgery, which the source claims found that 76% of seniors who had these specific PAD symptoms died within 8 years if they didn't get proper treatment.
76%. That's a grim statistic presented there.
It is. And to make it more vivid, the source includes a quote it attributes to an Elizabeth Randall, described as chief of vascular medicine at University Medical Center.
What did she say?
She apparently compares it to a plant dying because it's not getting water. The tissues aren't getting the blood they need.
That's a powerful image. Does it share another story here?
Yes, Gerald's story. According to the video, he noticed a small pale patch on his calf. It felt cool. His doctor apparently dismissed it initially. Months later, though, vascular surgeons supposedly found massive blockages. So bad, the source says, they were talking about potential amputation.
Goodness. So the sign was there, but maybe wasn't recognized early enough, according to this story.
That's the takeaway the source presents. It emphasizes how these visible signs can be present long before a major crisis hits.
So what's the recommended action plan from the source if you notice these kinds of changes? Another protocol?
Yep, a 3-step protocol aimed at, detecting and maybe helping with these blockages. Yeah. Step 1 is an at-home pulse test.
Okay, how do you do that?
The source instructs you to feel for the pulse on the top of your foot, right where the foot meets the ankle.
Got it.
And also behind the inner ankle bone. This is another pulse point there.
Okay.
And the advice from the source is, if either of those pulses feels weak, or if you can't find it at all,
Call the doctor.
call the doctor immediately. That's the recommendation. It's presented as a simple self-check anyone can do.
Right. Okay, so pulse check is step 1. What's step 2?
Step 2, according to the source, 3 specific exercises designed to boost circulation.
Which are?
Ankle rotations, like drawing circles with your foot, 30 each way. Toe flexes, just curling and uncurling your toes 50 times. And seated leg extensions, sitting down, straightening one leg out, then the other, 20 times each.
Okay, rotations, flexes, expansion.
And the source suggests doing these 3 times a day. It cites a University of Michigan study that it claims showed these simple movements increased leg circulation by up to 35% in just 2 weeks.
35% sounds pretty good for some simple exercises. Okay, and the third step?
Step 3 is about diet again. The source highlights 3 specific foods it calls power foods.
Let me guess. Healthy stuff.
You got it. Fresh berries, especially blueberries, are mentioned. Fatty fish like salmon. And dark leafy greens, spinach, kale, that sort of thing.
The usual suspects for good health.
Pretty much. But the source cites a study, supposedly from the journal Circulation, claiming that seniors who ate these kinds of foods 4 times a week had 67% fewer arterial blockages over 12 years.
67% fewer blockages.
That's the claim. And the source suggests that compounds in these foods can actually help dissolve plaque, but emphasizes you need to eat them consistently.
Right, makes sense. So, for discoloration and temperature changes, check pulses, do specific exercises, add those power foods. Okay, that brings us to the third and final warning sign from the source.
And this last one is about pain again, but a very specific kind of pain. Pain when you walk.
Not just any leg pain, though, right? You mentioned that.
Exactly. The source is very clear about the pattern. It's unexplained cramping or pain, usually in the calf, but sometimes the thigh or buttock.
Okay.
That starts when you walk a certain distance,
Yeah.
and it gets bad enough that it makes you stop and rest.
And then it goes away when you rest.
Yes. Crucially, the pain subsides when you stop moving. But then when you start walking again, it comes back.
That specific on-off pattern with walking.
Precisely. The source calls this claudication.
Claudication. Got it. And the source links this back to PD as well.
It does. It identifies this claudication as another key sign of peripheral artery disease. It even uses a phrase, quoting the source here, muscles screaming for oxygen.
Wow.
Yeah, it attributes that phrase to a Michael Reynolds, described as Director of Preventive Cardiology at Northwestern Medical Center. The idea is the muscles just aren't getting enough blood, enough oxygen, when you exert them by walking.
Muscles screaming for oxygen. That really paints a picture. And the risks the video associates with this specific symptom.
Again, quite high according to the source. It cites studies, supposedly from the American Heart Association, linking this walking pain pattern to a 300% higher risk of fatal strokes.
300% again. Fatal strokes this time.
Within just 4 years, is the claim presented.
And lifespan impact.
The source also references research published in the New England Journal of Medicine, which it claims associates claudication with a significantly shorter lifespan, potentially up to 10 years less life compared to people without the symptom.
10 years, that's substantial. Is there another story for this one?
Yes, Evelyn's story. According to the video, she experienced this burning, cramping feeling in her calves when she walked. But she just thought, oh, I'm out of shape. Dismissed it.
Like many people might.
Exactly. But the source says she later suffered a massive stroke, and her neurologist supposedly told her that walking pain had been a critical warning sign, a sign of blockages forming, not just in her legs, but in arteries leading up to her brain.
So the leg pain was potentially a sign of a system-wide issue, according to that anecdote.
That's the implication the source draws, yes. It underscores the seriousness it attributes to this specific stop-start walking pain.
So for this claudication pain, what's the source's protocol? Aimed at reversing blockages, you said.
That's the claim. First, a very specific walking routine. The 7-minute daily walking protocol.
Okay, just walk for 7 minutes.
Not quite. The source emphasizes it's not about continuous walking. It's about the stop-start. You walk until you feel that pain, even if it's only for a short time.
Then you stop.
You stop. You rest until the pain goes away completely, and then you start walking again. Repeat that cycle. Walk to pain. Stop, rest, walk again for exactly 7 minutes total.
So it's the pattern that's important, not the distance.
Exactly. The source claims this stop-start process is key because it encourages the body to develop collateral circulation,
Meaning?
like natural bypasses, new small blood vessels forming around the blockages to get blood where it needs to go.
Interesting.
And the source makes a claim about effectiveness, citing vascular surgeons at Stanford Medical Center, saying the 7-minute protocol can increase leg blood flow by up to 45% within 6 weeks.
45% increase in blood flow from that specific routine.
Okay.
What else is in the protocol for claudication?
Second, adding 3 more specific foods. Foods, the source claims, can naturally dissolve arterial plaque.
Okay, which one's this time?
Garlic, specifically recommending at least 1 fresh clove daily. Pomegranate juice, 4 ounces daily. And walnuts, just a handful each morning.
Garlic, pomegranate juice, walnuts. An interesting trio.
It is, and the source cites a study, supposedly from the University of Maryland Medical Center, claiming this specific combination reduced arterial blockages by up to 26% in 90 days.
26% plaque reduction in 3 months from those 3 foods. That's another strong claim.
It is, and there's one final piece of advice in this protocol.
Which is?
Eliminate one specific, very common cooking oil immediately. Corn oil.
Corn oil. Why?
The source claims that vascular researchers at Harvard Medical School found compounds in corn oil that actually accelerate plaque formation, especially in seniors over 65.
Accelerate plaque. Wow. Okay, so get rid of corn oil, replace it with what?
Extra virgin olive oil. The source suggests switching. It even claims that making this switch has been shown to improve arterial flexibility by up to 31% in just 30 days.
So, improving how flexible the arteries are, just by changing the oil.
That's the potential benefit presented in the source. A simple switch, but potentially quite impactful according to their claims.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. Based on this deep dive into the YouTube source, Senior Life Secrets, the main message seems to be, don't ignore your legs.
Pretty much.
These three things, the persistent swelling, the weird color or temperature changes, and that specific walking pain claudication the source, presents them as critical warnings, often missed.
Right. And it claims that acting on them, using the simple protocols it lays out, could potentially be life-saving or at least add healthy, active years.
So just to quickly recap those key takeaways from this source for you listening.
Yeah.
It flagged three main types of leg symptoms to watch for after 65.
Yeah. 1, swelling that sticks around, even overnight. 2, changes in skin color, pale, blue, red, or parts of the leg feeling unusually cool.
Indicating poor circulation, according to the source.
Right. And 3, that specific cramping pain when you walk that makes you stop, but eases with rest claudication.
And the source really hammers home the point that, in its view, these aren't just, normal aging.
Definitely not. It positions them as potential signs of serious underlying conditions. Things like venous insufficiency or PAD.
Which then links to some pretty scary risks. Heart failure, stroke, blood clots.
And even a potentially shorter lifespan, based on the studies it cites.
But it doesn't just leave it there, does it? It offers potential solutions.
Exactly. That's the other side of it. The source also offers this message of sort of empowerment. It suggests that by just being aware of these signs and by trying these simple, actionable things, it recommends the specific exercises, the dietary tweaks, elevating your legs, doing those self-checks like the pulse test or the sock test.
You could potentially make a real difference in managing these risks. That's the core claim, right? Based on the studies and experts it cites.
That's the hopeful message woven through the source material, yes. That simple actions might have significant benefits.
So, as you think about everything we've pulled out from this Senior Life Secrets video today, maybe here's a final thought for you to consider. Drawing from the source itself. How closely are you listening to your own body, specifically to the signals your legs might be sending? Could things that seem minor, a little swelling, a cool patch, some pain when walking, could they, as this source suggests, actually be early warnings?
And are these simple, seemingly low-cost actions, changing an oil, eating some berries, elevating your feet, doing a 30-second test, are they potentially powerful tools? Tools for understanding and maybe managing these risks?
Yeah, it's something to ponder, isn't it? This idea that really paying attention to these signs, according to the source, might just be a valuable gift you give to your future self.